Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So we are doing a totally impromptu, very last 2 days of summer because school starts on Monday. Yes, with misinformation and with the kid. Anyway, we're going down to Amelia Island, totally last minute. And by the way, if anybody catches this, like, I'm going to just film this thing, I'm going to release it, I'm going to put it online. If you happen to catch this before 3:40 p.m., we're actually going to be in Metter, Georgia. Yeah, the mecca of Metter, Georgia, to get a supercharger on the way down to Amelia. So anyway, if you happen to be there, you're welcome to say hi, stop in. But anyway, I wanted to talk real quick. Well, number one, I wanted to talk about the Starship going back out, or Ship 20, whatever it's called now. I think that's pretty amazing that they've been able to stack it, pull it back, redo whatever plumbing and all that other stuff they needed to do and pull it back out to the pad again. I really hope I can get down to Texas one of these days. I guess that'll be a consolation trip if I can't make it to AI Day, because otherwise I would rather go, if I was going to spend the money, I'd rather spend the money to go to AI Day. But anyway, we will see. But the main thing I wanted to talk about here is the fact that the Model 3 is now sold out in the United States, or I guess North America in general, until next year. The shipping date now is January of 2022, which is pretty remarkable. So there's a couple of things about that. From a personal basis, I think I've talked about this before, but we were very much considering going and, let me turn the air conditioning down so it's not so windy anymore. We were very much considering getting a Model 3 to go with our Model Y, but we ended up deciding that education was more important. So Hayden is now in private school instead. So there's our Model 3 money. But anyway, money much better spent on education than on an object.
Absolutely.
But absolutely, there we go. So anyway, so we had to push that back, but we would have been very, very frustrated personally if we had waited until the Biden administration had decided that I guess it's only going to be sub $40,000 cars or EVs that will be eligible for that $7,500 credit anymore. I don't agree with that. I think that there are no EVs that are going to be that cheap, aside from, just the real entry-level models. But as it happened, the Model 3 Standard Range Plus is just sub $40,000, so it would have fit well within that. So that would have been a really good purchase, and it would have been very frustrating to find out that we couldn't get one for about 5.5 or 6 months. Now, who knows? I mean, Tesla is always really good at ramping up production, but that's a pretty long time.
Is that not the reason that it was sold out?
It may be. There's a very good, but it's also sold out in Canada and Mexico, but I guess since they're all sort of one unit, it could very much be that the threat, yes, a contributing factor, because when you think about the car suddenly going from $40,000 to $42,500 effectively, that makes a really big difference, and I could see a lot more people being interested, and that's frankly what we were waiting for. We were honestly waiting until the tax credit came about, and then we were like, we're going to jump on that. But
you said 42 to 42, 42.5 to 42.
No, I said 32.5. Going from 40,000 to 32.5. Okay. And look, if I said 42.5, I did not mean that. Okay. I meant 32.5. I'm not trying to add 2,500. Okay. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about was, interestingly enough, this actually gives a sliver of hope to other companies right now. Because think about it, whoever is making, like perhaps the Ford Mach-E, for example, or the Volkswagen ID3 or ID4, although that's a different category of car, really. I guess the Mach-E kind of is more of an SUV as well. But anyway, any other car company that's manufacturing EVs right now, especially if they're sub $40,000 EVs, although they're very hard to come by, has a real opportunity to jump in and take some market share at the moment, because of course Tesla can't provide automobiles. So it's not us. We're certainly not in that situation, but I could see a group of people, of consumers, saying, I want a car, I want an EV, but I don't want to wait until 2022 to get that EV. So there's an opportunity for these companies to produce these cars and to be able to kind of grab some of that market share. And think about it, what you want is, you want the people who are buying their first EV to be buying with your company, because then the odds are very high that they're going to stay with your company over time, right? They'll probably be more inclined to buy another Ford over time. Now, I personally feel if you get a Tesla first, you're not going to go any other direction, and I can't foresee us ever getting another car aside from a Tesla. Okay, she agrees, and she's not a techie person like me, so that's a pretty good statement that we both are in agreement about that. So in fact, I don't think we're ever going to get another car, period. Like, no more gas cars and no more EVs except for Teslas. So Tesla has got us wrapped around their finger. But I think that if these other car companies want to jump in, their best opportunity is to try to get somebody who has not purchased a Tesla before to purchase their EV, because they'll have a lot higher likelihood of that person sticking with them, because they won't, the more knowledge you have, the more odds you're going to have of picking the best choice rather than a second tier choice. And so in my opinion, the other EVs are mostly second tier choices, but if you can capture a group of people who doesn't know that, then you've got a major advantage. So anyway, I thought my interesting kind of insight about this whole thing, first of all, I was like, wow, there's going to be a lot of very disappointed people that the cars aren't available till 2022. Second of all, I thought to myself, well, geez, maybe we should just go ahead and put in an order now, although I don't know where we'd come up with the money at this point. But I thought, well, if it's not till 2022, we only have to put $100 now. So I was like, okay, maybe we could do that. But then the third part was, wow, there are other car companies who might be able to jump in. Now, I think the problem's going to come about that these other car companies simply don't have the cars, because of course the global chip shortage and the battery shortage and all of those things are not just affecting Tesla. In fact, they're affecting other car companies much more heavily, but they're also producing far fewer EVs than Tesla is. So anyway, it'll be an interesting thing to see, but I could see Tesla's market share potentially in the United States and Canada and Mexico slipping a little bit over the next 6 months, simply because they can't produce enough cars to meet the demand, and so people might go other places. If it were up to me, I would wait. If it were up to other people, a lot of people probably are not in the mood to wait. I guess the other option would be to just go ahead and lease a car, like an ICE car or something, for a couple of years, and wait until this whole shortage has gone away and then kind of reset for that. So, or just hold on to your car, which is what we're going to be doing. We're going to hold on to our Mazda CX-5 and, for the time being, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, I thought that would be a really interesting thing to talk about, and I thought it would be interesting for people to think about whether these other car companies now have an opportunity to sort of jump in and take a little bit of market share if they can produce the cars, and if they're serious about EVs. I think one of the things that I discovered from the Biden talks this last week was, first of all, super disappointed that they didn't even, literally it's like Voldemort. It's like they won't even mention the word Tesla. They could probably, somebody could go like, hey, what's that thing that you do that goes, that has the little ball at the top that zaps off electricity? And that would be, they would say like, it's that unnamed machine, right? Instead of the Tesla machine. So it's almost to that extent. It's kind of like humorous how much they won't mention the word Tesla. So I don't know what's up with that. Tesla is the most American car company. It's an American success story. It's the success story of an immigrant coming to the United States and having a success with a company like this. I just don't understand what the problem is. I'll hazard a guess here. Since you asked, my guess is going to be that the number one, Detroit Auto, and number two, in bed with Detroit Auto, is of course unions. And again, I want to be very clear, I'm very much in favor of unions. I live in a non-union state and I have not gotten a raise in 3 years. So hey, that's what happens when you don't have a union state and you don't have collective bargaining, you get screwed. So I absolutely am in favor of unions, but the problem is that unions have kind of an outsized influence on policymakers, and so I think that has a lot to do with it. Of course, Tesla is famously non-union, and therefore, sorry, somebody's calling me. As always, people are calling me. Anyway, Tesla is famously non-union, and so I think that the unions have just put the kibosh on and told the Biden administration that they are not allowed to ever mention Tesla, and they can kind of sneak them into the EV package if they want to, but one of the ways they're kind of screwing with them is that $40,000 limit on cars, which, if you've ever looked at EVs, they cost more than $40,000. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Tesla comes out with the $25,000 EV. I think it's going to be much closer to a $30,000 EV, but still, that's well below $40,000. The other aspect, of course, is that you have to make under $100,000. I haven't looked into whether that's $100,000 for an individual and like $200,000 for a couple, or whether that's $100,000 for a household before you're allowed to have the tax break. I'm not sure about the details. I would imagine it's probably $100,000 for an individual and $200,000 or something like that for a couple. But anyway, so if you know about that, definitely let me know in the comments, because I do not know that detail about it, but it actually makes a big difference to us, because obviously we would want to be eligible for that $7,500 tax break if we could be. So anyway, and the other part about it is, of course, it's only a tax break, which means it doesn't help tax break doesn't help you at all because you don't really have a tax liability to start with. So it's pretty tough all over, right? So, yeah, exactly. It is not good stuff. There's so many bad things with this. It's just very, I'm super disappointed. Sorry, I meant to be talking about the whole thing about Tesla and not being able to produce enough cars, which is fantastic news, and it's really great that the grassroots interest in EVs is going way up. It's very disappointing that the administration of the United States, and I think more than any other country, and again, the last administration, I was like, well, yeah, of course they're not going to be up for this. But this administration, I really thought with the Green New Deal and everything was going to be much more behind EVs as a real thing and actually trying to get EVs to become the new economy or the new transportation economy. But clearly they're not. They just want to make a whole bunch of noise about it and not do anything. So super disappointed about that. But anyway, other car companies. So GM, Volkswagen, Toyota, right? They don't really produce EVs, but they do produce hybrids. But Hyundai, other companies, Hyundai is actually a really good company. They make very good EVs. So it's time for them to try to pump the American market as much as they can in the next 6 months and hit it while Tesla is just completely swamped. Because once the Gigafactory in Texas opens up, things are going to change, and that's going to happen by the end of this year. So you guys have a little teeny sliver of time to make this happen, and if not, you're going to lose out. And I think Tesla's going to be king anyway, but they might be able to make a little wedge, open up a crack in that door. Anyway, all right. Any last words? Any last thoughts? No?
Nope.
All right. Anyway, we're off to Amelia. Anybody who wants to see us at Metter, we will be there at 3:40 p.m. this afternoon if you're watching this when I release it. In the meantime, I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.